Oh guys, it's another day in One Piece Chapter Cruise and we don't have any news announcements. What's that? Check the admin info, you say? Or read the words above my head, you say? Sockets are coming out with 4.0 to the global version of One Piece Chapter Cruise. Yes, sirree, yes indeed. Chat has been super fun today because we're all super hyped because we're getting sockets to the global version of One Piece Chapter Cruise. But Zenigami USA, what are sockets? What are those? Well, sockets are something that you get whenever you feed a character to himself. So if I fed any Luffy to my Luffy, I get a socket on that Luffy. So for example, if I fed a Kimono Luffy to my Gear 3 Luffy, I would get a socket. If I fed a Brain Point Chopper to my Monster Chopper, I would get a socket on Monster Chopper. If I fed Monster Chopper to a Arm Point Chopper for whatever reason, I would get a socket on that Arm Point Chopper. So you can read through this. I'm gonna go over what everything here does, and in order to do that, I will go over to Japan so I can show you sockets. I can show you how they work. I can show you the best sockets to get, because I know that's what you're thinking. I know you're like, okay, sockets, they do good things, but which ones do I get on my characters? We're gonna go over that. Big Booty Eater Incarnate subscribing right in the middle of the video. That will be forever stuck on the YouTubes. But as well as sockets, remember that sockets are the total sum of your entire team, not per individual character. So it's a total number of sockets that you have on your entire team, including your friend captain, not just on each character. And as something else, some real quick note on what we're getting with 4.0 besides sockets is we're also gonna get bonus gems with our downloads. This actually came out in 5.0 on the Japanese version, but the gems that we get on the global version, you just get them for free when we get a download. Whenever you're downloading an update, unless it's a really small update that just finishes right away, any moderate sized update, and that includes like updates for new Fortnite or updates for a new event or anything like that, we just get a gem for it. You just, as it downloads, it just bam, free gem for you. So you don't need to do anything. You'll just see, now all it really is on the download bar, there'll just be a gem right there, and when you hit OK, you get a free gem. Free gem's what's not to like about it. Anyways, let's go over to the Japanese. One thing I need to note is that we don't know exactly when this is right now. We don't know when sockets are coming out. A good guess is whenever Water 7 comes out. That's probably when sockets are going to come out too. Now, we don't have a date for Water 7 yet, and they're either going to announce the date of Water 7 with the date of sockets, or they're going to announce the date of Water 7 and it's probably going to be the same date as sockets. We'll get the sockets announcement maybe a day or two later, earlier than that. But anyways, over to the Japanese version of One Piece Chapter Cruise. Let's look at sockets. So once we actually get sockets, you can go to your character and you'll see that on the bottom left hand corner of characters, sometimes there's a little circle there. And that little circle means that I have given those characters sockets. Now you can see here I've got 5 and 5. All the total sockets that we have, we're gonna go over all of them. What was it? Oh, you know, I can go to it from Edit Crew. Edit Crew, you'll see this new bar down right here. I don't read Japanese, so I can't tell you what the bar says, but I know it's how you get to socket information for your team. So you can see here I've got 1s and 2s. That's just how many sockets of those types I have on each individual crew. And once I hit a certain threshold, you'll see it says level 1 or level 2. And you'll see the sockets that are active down here. You can see I have 8 1-4s, but none of those are active. On this team, I've got some of them active. Each one of these, we're going to go down in order. We're going to say what it is. And I'm going to tell you the 4 best types for you to have. There's 4 of the most useful sockets. Those are the tier 1 sockets, and then there's 3 of them that are tier 2, and then there's the last 3 that are just not really good. Now the first one is damage reduction. So this is just straight damage reduction. It reduces the damage you take from poisons, it reduces the damage you take from attacks, it reduces the damage you take from special attacks. There are still characters that do exact damage, so they are not reduced, but it reduces most damage. So if you have 5 sockets, like I have 7 right now on my team, I get all my damage reduced by 3%, at 10 it's reduced by 5%, and at 15 it's reduced by 10%. Next is cooldown reduction. Now this works just like having a Sengoku captain. It reduces the cooldowns at the start of the island by X number of turns. So if I have 10 sockets in cooldown reduction, you get a 1 turn reduction as soon as you start an island. If you have 20 sockets, you get a 2 turn reduction at the very start of an island. Now this doesn't reduce the low minimum cost, it's just the cost at the very beginning of the island. So if you use a special like Goemon Usopp, it doesn't go to 8 turns, it goes back to 10 turns. It just starts the island at 8. Anti-lock. You know what, let's also tell you what's the best. Cooldown reduction, anti-lock, anti-silence, and orb matching are the best. Anti-locking orbs are ridiculously good as soon as we heard about them the very first time they came out on the Japanese version, and we did not think that they did what they did, but they do what they sound like. They reduce the number of turns that any of your characters get locked by that many turns. If I have 10 anti-locking orbs, if 80 of my characters were to get locked by 1 turn, it would just never get locked. The lock would go away immediately, just as if I use a Helmeppo special. At 15, your locks get reduced by 2 turns, and at 20, your locks get reduced by 3 turns. So once you have 20 anti-lock orbs, only 20, it's like you have a permanent Helmeppo special. Your characters aren't even locked for a second. The lock goes on it and then immediately disappears. That means any character like Monster Chopper will lock you for 1 turn. If you have level 1 anti-lock, it does nothing at all. Monster Chopper will never lock any of your characters. All those guys that lock the types that are weak against them, they do nothing at all. You just get free turns. This socket is so stupidly powerful. And mentioned with these stupidly powerful sockets is Anti-Captain Silence. Anti-Captain Silence reduces all your Captain Silences by 1 turns at 10 sockets, 2 turns at 15 sockets, and 3 turns at 20 sockets. 3 turns of Anti-Captain Silence. So whenever you do get if you were to get silenced by 1 turn, it never applies. It does not apply if you have the proper anti-silence amounts. Now this does apply before these silences ever applied. For example, if I'm using a double Jozu team, if I were to get silenced on my double Jozu team for 1 turn, I would lose all of that extra health from my Jozus. But with Anti-Captain Silence, if I have Anti-Captain Silence on for level 1 Anti-Captain Silence and I get silenced for 1 turn, my Jozus never get silenced and I keep all of my health. It's so powerful. The only caveat with Anti-Captain Silence orbs is that you do not want them on Blackbeard teams, specifically Blackbeard teams. And the reason you don't want Anti-Captain Silence orbs on Blackbeard teams is because there are lots of fights. I'm looking at you, Duval, specifically, and several other raid bosses and fights that you can take advantage of this. But Captain Silence actually counts as damage dealt to a Blackbeard team. So with Blackbeard teams, you actually want to get silenced because that jumps away, you lose all that health, and then you just turn around and then use Blackbeard special and then you kill them. So only on Blackbeard's team is Anti-Captain Silence a bad thing to have. On every other team, it is amazingly good and makes so many fights so much easier. Next down the list is heal per turn. Now this works just like a VV special, it works just like a VV captain ability, it works just like a Nell's captain ability. At the end of every turn you get healed for X amount before the enemy attacks. So at 5 sockets you get healed for 100 every turn. At 8 sockets you get healed for 200 every turn. At 12 you get 300. At 16 you get 500 per turn. And at 24 heal per turn sockets you get 1,000 healing per turn. 1,000 healing per turn. That is basically, it's almost as much as a Nell would heal just by himself, so that's pretty darn good. That's like having an Enel captain all the time. And this applies at the end of every turn, so it doesn't matter if your captains are silenced or not. Even if your captains get silenced, you still get heal per turn active. And then next is